Have you ever wondered what really happens when you spend too much time alone? Not the peaceful solitude you choose, but the quiet that lingers, stretches, and begins to change you. Yogananda warned that isolation can reveal truths you never expected, and awaken shadows you didn't know lived inside you. At first, being alone feels harmless. It feels like rest, like recovery, like space to breathe. But over time, something subtle shifts. Your thoughts grow louder. Your emotions become heavier. The world outside feels distant, unreal, unnecessary. Yogananda taught that human consciousness was never meant to exist in isolation for long periods. The soul thrives in connection, in shared energy, in the subtle exchange of love, joy, and compassion. When these currents disappear, the mind begins to distort reality. Solitude turns into introspection. Introspection turns into overthinking. Overthinking turns into a spiritual fog that quietly blinds the intuitive self. And the first disturbing effect appears. You lose the mirror of other souls. Without the presence of others, you can't see yourself clearly. You don't grow, you don't soften, you don't evolve. Instead, you become trapped inside your own unfiltered mind. A place Yogananda said can be either a temple or a prison. The longer isolation continues, the more the soul forgets its natural purpose: to connect, to love, to serve, to expand through shared experience. But this is only the beginning. With every passing day in extended solitude, deeper and darker effects begin to emerge. Effects Yogananda believed could weaken the spirit and distort consciousness if left unchecked. Extended isolation begins to alter consciousness in ways most people never notice until the effects become impossible to ignore. Yogananda warned that solitude without spiritual discipline does not elevate the soul. It destabilizes it. The second disturbing effect emerges quietly. You begin to lose your sense of identity. Without the reflection of others, you no longer recognize your strengths, your fears, your purpose. The mind drifts, unfocused, unanchored, unable to distinguish intuition from imagination. Then comes the third effect. Your emotional resilience weakens. Small problems feel overwhelming. Minor thoughts spiral into deep anxiety. The absence of human warmth turns the heart inward, where suppressed emotions begin to echo louder and louder. The fourth effect is more subtle yet more dangerous. Your inner critic becomes your dominant voice. Without outside perspective, the mind exaggerates flaws and invents insecurities. Yogananda said that an unguarded mind in isolation becomes a master of illusion, creating problems where none exist. And then arrives the fifth effect, one Yogananda considered spiritually alarming. You forget the natural rhythm of life. Days blur, time loses meaning, energy stagnates. The soul disconnects from the world's flow, its movement, its harmony, its divine timing. But even these are not the most disturbing effects. The sixth effect manifests when the heart grows cold. Your capacity for love begins to shrink, not because you feel bitterness, but because you forget how love feels when it moves between souls. Compassion fades, empathy dulls. You become spiritually numb. Then comes the seventh effect. You start creating imaginary versions of people and conversations. The mind invents scenarios to fill the void of real interaction. This can distort judgment, leading to misunderstandings, resentment, or unrealistic expectations when you finally reconnect with others. The eighth effect strikes deeper. You lose the ability to receive guidance. Without conversation, without connection, without shared insight, you rely solely on your own interpretation of reality, often incomplete, sometimes misleading, occasionally destructive. And as solitude stretches further, two final haunting effects begin to take shape. Effects Yogananda believed could weaken not just the mind, but the soul itself. As solitude grows longer, something shifts beyond the mind, beyond emotion, beyond daily habits. Yogananda taught that when a person remains alone too long without spiritual grounding, isolation begins to touch the soul itself, distorting awareness, weakening intuition, and dimming inner light. The ninth disturbing effect is one Yogananda warned seekers about. You become attached to isolation, not because it brings peace, but because it feels safe. The world becomes overwhelming, unpredictable, too intense. Isolation becomes a refuge, then a comfort, then a dependency. You forget how to engage, how to trust, how to be present with others. What began as a choice becomes a cage. And then comes the 10th, most alarming effect. You drift away from your spiritual essence. The soul expands through giving, sharing, loving, serving. Extended isolation cuts off these channels. The divine spark dims. You start to feel disconnected from purpose, from inspiration, from the higher guidance Yogananda said, flows through human connection. The inner light flickers, not extinguished but weakened, waiting to be reignited. Yet Yogananda never delivered warnings without offering a path forward. He taught that the cure for harmful solitude is not crowds, noise, or distraction, but conscious reconnection. Reconnect with one soul. Reconnect with nature. Reconnect with service. Reconnect with purpose. Even the smallest act, sharing a thought, giving a smile, offering help, restores the spiritual circuits that isolation disrupts. Because in truth, your soul was never meant to journey alone. It grows through relationships, evolves through compassion, and awakens through love. Isolation may distort the mind, but connection heals it. Connection strengthens intuition. Connection reawakens the divine spark that makes life meaningful. According to Yogananda, the ultimate purpose of human existence is not withdrawal, but union. Union with others, union with truth, union with the divine. So if you have been alone too long, remember this. Your soul is not asking you to hide. It is asking you to return to life, to love, to purpose, to connection. Because the world needs the light that only you can give.